The next morning, Mark awoke with a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness. The previous days had tested him in ways he never imagined, and each challenge had strengthened his respect for Lyria. More than that, he felt a bond growing between them, a connection he could not ignore. Today, he sensed, would bring something extraordinary. He found Lyria waiting outside his quarters, her calm presence immediately soothing his nerves. She smiled faintly, a subtle gesture that carried warmth he had not yet seen before. "Good morning, Mark," she said softly. "Today we'll show you the next step in understanding Xyrith." "I'm ready," he said, feeling determination mixed with curiosity. "I want to learn more, to help however I can," she nodded. "We will do more than observe today. You will participate in a ceremony that few humans have witnessed. It is a ritual of trust and harmony between our people and allies." Mark followed her through the glowing streets, the city alive with its usual energy. The streets were quiet in the early hours, giving the glowing pathways and crystalline buildings an ethereal beauty. He could feel the city's energy pulsing beneath the surface, vibrant and alive. They arrived at a large open plaza, surrounded by towers of translucent crystal. Streams of flowing light crisscrossed the space, and at its center stood a circular platform that seemed to hum with energy. A group of Xyrethians had already gathered, forming a ring around the platform. Lyria turned to Mark. "Step onto the platform. Trust the process and remain open to the experience." He hesitated for a moment, then nodded and stepped forward. As his feet touched the platform, he felt a strange warmth spread through his body, as if the city itself was recognizing him. The Xyrethians around him extended their hands, and streams of light connected them in a web of energy. Mark felt a connection he could not describe, linking him to the city, to the Xyrethians, and, most profoundly, to Lyria. "You feel it," Lyria said softly, her hand close to his. "The flow of trust and harmony, few humans can connect in this way." Mark felt his heart swell. He realized that this was not just a ritual of the city, but a test of understanding, empathy, and openness. The energy pulsed through him, vibrant and alive, and he felt his thoughts and emotions aligning with the rhythm of Xyrith itself. Suddenly, a surge of energy erupted from the city's core, brighter and stronger than anything he had experienced before. The plaza shook, and some of the Xyrethians stumbled, but Lyria's calm presence anchored him. She guided his focus, showing him how to integrate with the energy rather than resist it. "Concentrate, Mark," she said. "Let the energy flow through you. Trust yourself and trust me." He followed her guidance, letting the warmth and light of the city move through him. He felt a strange harmony, as if his thoughts and actions were synchronized with the pulse of Xyrith. The energy surged again, but this time he felt confident, balanced, connected. The Xyrethians surrounding them began to chant, their voices harmonizing with the energy currents. Mark felt a profound sense of unity, not just with Lyria, but with the city and its people. It was a moment of understanding and trust, bridging worlds and species in a way he could never have imagined. Then, suddenly as it began, the surge stabilized. The platform glowed softly, and the plaza returned to its calm rhythm. Mark exhaled deeply, feeling both exhaustion and exhilaration. He looked at Lyria, who gave him a faint nod of approval. "You have done well, human," she said. "You have connected in a way few can. This is a mark of trust and understanding." Mark felt a mixture of pride and humility. I couldn't have done it without your guidance. You showed me how to be calm, focused, and connected." Lyria's eyes softened. "We guided each other. That is the lesson. Courage, trust, and honesty are the same across all worlds." After the ceremony, the council gathered to discuss the day's events. They praised Mark for his bravery and connection to Xyrith's energy. Acknowledging the remarkable bond that had formed between him and Lyria, he realized that humans and Xyrethians could achieve incredible things together, combining human ingenuity with Xyrethian skill and wisdom. Later, Lyria led him to a quiet terrace overlooking the glowing city. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows and bathing the city in gold and soft blue light. The moment felt sacred, quiet, and intimate. You have done more than I expected, Lyria said softly. You have proven that humans can understand our world, our energy, and our values. You are exceptional. Mark felt a surge of emotion. I admire you, Lyria, not just for your strength or skill, but for your guidance, your wisdom, and your courage. You've shown me what true connection and trust mean. She looked at him, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the city. For a moment there was silence, a shared understanding that went beyond words. Then she spoke, her voice gentle but firm. You have been honest with me, human. You have respected our people, our ways, and our energy. That is rare, and it has created something remarkable, a bond between us. Mark's heart raced. A bond, you mean? Between us? Yes, Lyria said softly. We come from different worlds, different species, but the connection we have formed is genuine. It is built on trust, respect, and shared experience. It is special. Mark felt a mixture of astonishment and joy. He had never imagined that a simple compliment could lead to a connection that transcended worlds, cultures, and even species. He realized that his honesty, courage, and willingness to learn had created something extraordinary. They stood together in silence, watching the city glow below. Mark felt a profound sense of unity, not just with Lyria, but with the city and its people. He realized that this journey had changed him, teaching him bravery, patience, and the power of honest connection. Then, unexpectedly, Lyria reached out and placed her hand gently on his. The energy of the city seemed to respond, flowing between them in a warm, vibrant pulse. Mark felt a connection so deep that words could not describe it. He understood, in that moment, that their bond was undeniable. A fusion of trust, courage, and mutual respect that neither human nor Zyrithian had experienced before. You are remarkable, Lyria said softly. Not for your strength alone, but for your honesty, your courage, and your heart. That is why this bond exists. That is why it is real. Mark felt tears of gratitude well in his eyes. And you are remarkable, Lyria. You have shown me a world I could never have imagined. And you have taught me what it means to truly connect. They stood together. Hands joined, the city's energy surrounding them in a warm, protective glow. Mark realized that the mission, the dangers, and the challenges had led to this incredible moment, a bond that was rare, unexplainable, and utterly powerful. As night fell, the city's glow softened, bathing them in gentle light. Lyria turned to Mark, her expression calm yet full of emotion. The universe is vast, and our worlds are different, but connections like this are what make life meaningful. We have proven that humans and Zyrithians can create something extraordinary together. Mark nodded, feeling a deep sense of fulfillment. I will honor this bond, Lyria. I promise to respect, protect, and cherish it. She smiled faintly, a gesture that carried warmth, respect, and something more profound than he could describe. And I will honor it as well, human. Together, we have discovered what is possible when honesty, courage, and trust guide our actions. For the first time, Mark felt that he truly understood the power of connection across worlds. He had begun his journey as a visitor, a human trying to learn about an alien culture. He had faced danger, challenges, and uncertainty. But through it all, he had formed a bond that transcended the ordinary, a bond that was extraordinary, powerful, and completely unexpected. As they looked out over the glowing city, Mark knew that this was not the end. Their journey had created a foundation for something greater: mutual understanding, respect, and a friendship, perhaps more, that could shape the future of humans and Zyrethians alike. The stars above twinkled as the twin suns set completely, and Mark felt a deep sense of peace. He realized that sometimes an honest word, a simple gesture, or an act of courage could lead to unbelievable consequences. And for him, it had led to something he'd never imagined: a true connection with an extraordinary being from another world. He turned to Lyria once more, feeling the bond in every fiber of his being. "Thank you," he said softly. She inclined her head, her eyes shining with quiet emotion. Thank you, human, for your honesty, your courage, and your heart. That is what made this possible. In that moment, Mark understood that their story was only beginning. Together, they had faced challenges, learned from each other, and discovered something rare and beautiful. The bond they shared was more than friendship or admiration. It was a testament to the potential of humanity, the power of trust, and the extraordinary possibilities that arise when worlds come together. And as the night settled over Xyrath, Mark knew one thing clearly: this connection, born from honesty, courage, and respect, was something he would carry forever. A reminder that even in the vast universe, extraordinary bonds could form, transcending worlds, species, and expectations. The next morning, Mark woke to the soft hum of Xyrath's city. Through the translucent walls of the delegation quarters, he could see the glowing streets begin to stir with movement. Alien citizens floated gracefully along the pathways, their luminous patterns shifting subtly with each step. Mark had grown used to the beauty, but it never failed to amaze him. He dressed quickly, his human uniform feeling heavy compared to the flowing forms of the Xyrethians. Today, he had been assigned to explore a part of the city rarely seen by humans. To his surprise, Lyria was waiting outside, poised with her usual calm presence. "You are punctual," she said, her melodic voice filling his translator. Her eyes sparkled as she studied him, and for a moment, Mark felt a strange warmth. "I try to be," he replied, smiling nervously. "I don't want to make a bad impression on your people." Lyria inclined her head slightly, a gesture that seemed both approving and amused. "Your people already make impressions. How you behave will tell more than your words ever could." They began walking, moving along paths lined with crystalline structures that reflected the soft light of the city. Mark noticed how carefully Lyria moved, her feet barely touching the ground as though she weighed nothing. He tried to match her pace, feeling clumsy in comparison, but she did not seem to mind. "Today you will see our cultural center," she said, her voice calm. "It is where we share knowledge, art, and the history of Xyrath." Mark nodded. "I'm eager to see it. I want to learn as much as I can about your people." Lyria's eyes studied him closely. "You are sincere," she said softly. "That is rare." They entered a grand building, its walls shimmering with patterns that seemed to move and change. Inside, holographic displays floated in the air, showing scenes of Xyrath's past great leaders, technological advancements, and incredible feats of artistry. Mark walked slowly, absorbing every detail. Humans had advanced technology, but the Xyrethians combined science and art in ways that were completely new to him. "This is amazing," he said, turning to Lyria. "Your people. You are so advanced, yet your culture feels alive, not cold." Lyria looked at him, her eyes reflecting the floating images. "We value balance," she explained. "Knowledge is important, but so is connection. One without the other leads to emptiness." Mark nodded, understanding more than he expected. He realized that humans often pursued knowledge or power without considering harmony or responsibility. Here, the Xyrethians had mastered both. As they moved through the cultural center, Mark noticed small artifacts of alien art. Some floated freely in the air, rotating slowly, while others displayed holographic imagery that responded to touch. Lyria guided him carefully, showing him items that represented the history of her people. "Each piece tells a story," she said. "Some are about achievements. Others are about failure and learning. All are important." Mark reached out to touch one artifact, a floating orb that glowed softly in his hand. Instantly, he felt a rush of images and emotions, moments of Xyrethian life from centuries ago. He gasped, startled, and Lyria smiled faintly. "You felt it," she said. "Only those who are open and honest in heart can connect to the stories in this way." Mark released the orb slowly. "That was incredible. I've never felt anything like it." "You are special, human," Lyria said softly, her eyes meeting his. "Not all of your kind would have reacted with respect." The words made Mark's heart beat faster. He had always thought humans were brave and curious, but hearing her say it made him feel seen in a way he had never experienced. He realized that his initial compliment to her had been a small act of honesty. but it had started something far bigger. After the cultural center, Lyria led him to a quiet plaza. Here, humans were rarely allowed because the area contained sensitive energy channels used by the Zarethians for meditation and study. The plaza was filled with glowing pools, streams of floating light, and patterns that shifted like liquid. Mark could barely take it all in. This place. It's unreal, he whispered. Lyria smiled faintly. It is where we come to reflect, to understand our place in the world. You may observe, but you must move with care. As they walked along the floating streams, Mark felt a strange pull in his chest. He wanted to speak, to tell her how much her presence meant, but he did not know if it was proper. He decided to try anyway. Lyria, he said softly, I feel like I'm seeing the world differently because of you. You make me see things I didn't notice before. She paused and looked at him fully for the first time that day. Her eyes seemed to hold galaxies within them, and Mark felt small, yet connected to something immense. You see, with your heart, human. That is rare. Most rely only on the mind, on logic. You are different. Mark felt a mixture of pride and humility. He had not expected her to say that. He realized that this simple connection built on honesty and respect was changing him as much as he was learning about her world. They continued walking until they reached a pavilion where Zarethian scholars practiced an art of energy manipulation. Streams of light flowed from their hands, forming intricate shapes that hovered in the air. Lyria watched closely as Mark tried to understand. Can humans learn this? He asked, curiosity rising in his voice. Some may, Lyria said, but it requires balance, patience, and honesty in all actions. Your kind is reckless. Mark smiled sheepishly. I guess I have a lot to learn. You do, she said softly, but your heart is open. That is more important than skill. As the day went on, Mark realized he was growing more comfortable around Lyria. They laughed together at small misunderstandings, exchanged ideas, and learned from each other. He was careful to show respect for her culture, and she, in turn, began to share glimpses of her personality. By afternoon, the delegation had an urgent meeting with the council. Lyria accompanied Mark, her presence steadying him as they entered the grand chamber. Aliens of various shapes and sizes sat around a circular table, their luminous forms casting soft light. The council spoke in harmonics that only translators could render, discussing topics of security, diplomacy, and trade. Mark followed carefully, trying not to make mistakes. Lyria stayed by his side, occasionally whispering clarifications in his ear. Her attention made him feel both nervous and reassured. During the discussion, a security alert suddenly sounded. Alarms echoed through the chamber. Mark looked around, startled, and noticed the council members moving quickly to secure the building. Lyria's eyes narrowed, and her posture shifted subtly. She moved with speed and precision, guiding Mark behind a protective energy barrier. Stay close, she said softly. Moments later, a group of rogue aliens appeared at the edge of the chamber, their forms aggressive and threatening. The council members reacted quickly, but it was clear that the intruders intended harm. Mark's heart raced, but he watched in awe as Lyria moved with unmatched grace. She manipulated energy fields with precise control, protecting the council and civilians alike. Mark realized that she was not only beautiful and intelligent, but incredibly capable in danger. He had seen bravery before, but this was different. She combined strength, skill, calmness in a way that humans rarely managed. The situation was tense, but together they moved through the chaos. Lyria guided him past obstacles, taught him how to avoid danger, and showed him the importance of quick thinking. Mark felt a deep respect and admiration for her. He also felt something more, an emotional connection that was impossible to ignore. Finally, after what felt like hours, but was only minutes, the intruders were subdued, and calm returned to the chamber. The council members expressed gratitude, though some looked at Lyria with astonishment. Humans rarely impressed the Zarethians, but Mark had held his own with guidance. Lyria looked at him, her eyes softening. You performed well, human. You were brave and honest. Most of your kind would have panicked, Mark shook his head, still catching his breath. I couldn't have done it without you. You saved everyone, she smiled faintly. We helped each other. That is what matters. After the crisis, the delegation returned to the quarters. Mark reflected on the day's events. He realized that his admiration for Lyria had grown beyond simple fascination with her appearance. He respected her courage, intelligence, and kindness. He felt an unusual bond forming a connection that transcended species. Lyria stood beside him, silent but present. He felt a strange mix of anticipation and nervousness for what the coming days might bring. The events of today had shown him that honesty, bravery— I'm glad you're here with me. Lyria's eyes softened, and she inclined her head. As am I, human who speaks honestly. For the first time, Mark felt that this mission was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about learning, trust, and understanding. It was about discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary and forming a bond that might change the course of their worlds. The next day began quietly, but Mark could feel a strange tension in the air. Xyrith's normally harmonious energy seemed slightly unsettled, subtle enough that only those attuned to it could notice. Lyria had sensed it first, standing silently as they walked through the glowing streets. Her eyes, usually calm and reflective, held a sharp focus, scanning the surroundings with intensity. Mark followed closely, sensing that something was about to happen. We must go to the central energy hub today, Lyria said softly. There have been fluctuations. If left unchecked, they could affect the city. Mark nodded, adjusting his translator device nervously. Fluctuations? Are they dangerous? They can be, Lyria replied. But I believe we can stabilize them if we act carefully and quickly. They arrived at the energy hub, a massive structure of crystalline towers and flowing energy streams. Inside, the hum of power was nearly deafening, and glowing conduits twisted throughout the room like rivers of light. Xyrethian scientists moved quickly, checking readings and making adjustments. Despite their calm demeanor, Mark noticed the undercurrent of worry among them. Lyria guided Mark to a control console. You will assist me, she said. Follow my instructions carefully. Focus on your instincts as well as logic. Mark nodded, feeling a mix of nervousness and determination. He had faced challenges before, but this was different. The energy of the city was alive, and any mistake could have serious consequences. Lyria moved beside him, her calm presence reassuring him. He watched as her hands flowed through the air, directing energy currents and stabilizing the systems. Mark, the outer conduits are unstable, she said. You must redirect the flow while I contain the core. Trust your intuition. Taking a deep breath, Mark focused on the console. He followed her instructions, carefully manipulating the controls to guide the energy streams into safe channels. The lights shifted around him, reflecting off the walls in dazzling patterns. He could feel the power humming beneath his fingertips, alive and responsive. You are doing well, Lyria said softly. Remain focused. Suddenly, an unexpected surge pulsed through the system. Sparks flew, and the room shook. Mark stumbled, nearly losing his balance, but Lyria caught his arm, steadying him. Her eyes were calm but intense, focused entirely on the energy currents. Keep moving, she said. You are stronger than you realize. Mark's hands worked quickly, adjusting controls and redirecting unstable currents. He felt a strange connection with the energy, as if it recognized his intent. Lyria's presence beside him amplified his focus, guiding him through the complex task. Together, they stabilized the conduits one by one. Their teamwork seamless despite being from different worlds. As the last surge settled, a deep silence filled the room. The energy hum returned to its normal rhythm, steady and harmonious. Mark exhaled, feeling a mix of relief and exhilaration. He looked at Lyria, who gave him a small nod, her eyes softening with approval. You did well, Mark, she said. Few humans could have adapted so quickly. You have courage, patience, and balance. Mark felt a warmth in his chest. I couldn't have done it without you. You guided me through every step. Lyria inclined her head slightly. We helped each other. That is the way of trust and respect. Despite the relief, the day was far from over. The council summoned them to a meeting immediately after the incident. As they entered the chamber, Mark noticed the serious expressions of the council members. Lyria moved beside him, calm and composed as always, and he felt reassured by her presence. The council discussed the recent energy fluctuations and the attempted sabotage. Mark observed carefully, understanding that his role as a human representative was delicate. He listened as Lyria explained their actions and the human contribution. The council seemed impressed, their tone respectful as they acknowledged the quick thinking and bravery shown during the crisis. After the meeting, Lyria guided Mark to a quiet observation terrace overlooking the city. The twin suns were setting, casting long golden and blue shadows across the glowing structures below. The beauty of the city was breathtaking, yet Mark's thoughts were on the day's events. And the trust that had developed between him and Lyria. You handled the energy hub well, Lyria said softly, her eyes reflecting the glow of the city. You were calm under pressure and precise in your actions. Many would not have managed it. Mark shook his head. I was only following your guidance. Without you, I would have failed. You are learning, she said, not only about my world, but about yourself. That is more important than skill alone. Mark felt a surge of admiration and respect for her. He realized that Lyria's presence was not just protective, it was transformative. Her guidance and calm confidence were teaching him more than any book or lecture could. He had learned courage, patience, and focus under pressure. As they watched the glowing city, a soft sound caught their attention. Far below, near one of the outer energy conduits, a small group of rogue aliens was attempting to tamper with the secondary hub. Lyria's eyes narrowed, and she immediately assessed the situation. They have returned, she said softly. They are attempting to create instability again. We must stop them before it spreads. Mark's heart raced. He had hoped for a quiet evening, but he knew this was a test of everything he had learned. He followed Lyria as she led him toward the outer hub, moving quickly but carefully to avoid detection. When they arrived, they found the aliens attempting to manipulate the energy flows. Lyria moved with precision, creating protective barriers and directing energy currents to counteract their actions. Mark followed her instructions, manipulating controls and assisting in stabilizing the systems. The aliens were aggressive, but Lyria's calm authority and Mark's quick thinking allowed them to contain the threat. During the confrontation, Mark noticed that Lyria did not just act with power, she communicated with the energy itself, guiding it with subtle gestures and intent. It was mesmerizing, and he realized that her connection to her world was deeper than anything he could have imagined. Finally, the rogue aliens were forced to retreat. Lyria stabilized the last conduit and turned to Mark. You did well, she said. You remained calm, focused, and adaptable. I am proud of your progress. Mark felt a mixture of relief and pride. I feel like I understand more about your world now, and about myself too. Lyria's expression softened. That is the lesson of today. Courage, honesty, and respect are the same across all worlds. You've shown them in abundance. As they walked back to the city center, Mark reflected on the unbelievable events of the day. He had faced danger, adapted to alien technology, and worked alongside a being of extraordinary skill and intelligence. The bond between him and Lyria had deepened, built on trust, respect, and shared experience. By the time they returned to the delegation quarters, the twin suns had fully set, and the city glowed with a soft, calming light. Mark felt a sense of exhaustion, but also exhilaration. He had learned more about bravery, teamwork, and the strength of the human spirit than he ever had before. Lyria stood beside him as they entered the quarters. Rest now, Mark, she said softly. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, but you are ready. Mark nodded, feeling gratitude and admiration. Thank you, Lyria, for everything. She inclined her head slightly. We help each other. That is the way of trust and balance. As Mark settled into his quarters, he reflected on the journey so far. What had begun as a simple compliment had grown into an incredible experience, one that tested courage, built trust, and forged a bond between human and alien that neither could have predicted. He realized that this mission was no longer just about diplomacy or observation. It was about understanding, connection, the extraordinary potential of cooperation between worlds. He drifted to sleep with thoughts of Lyria and the glowing city, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new lessons, and perhaps an even more unbelievable turn in their journey together. The morning sun rose over Zereth, casting soft, glowing hues across the city. Mark woke early, still feeling the adrenaline from the events of the previous day. His thoughts kept returning to Lyria and the calm strength she had shown during the crisis. He had faced dangerous situations before, but nothing had left him so impressed or so affected. He dressed quickly, knowing that today would likely bring another busy schedule with the council, but he secretly hoped for more time with Wara. As he stepped into the courtyard, he found her waiting as usual. She stood tall and composed, her glowing skin shimmering faintly in the morning light. Her presence was both intimidating and comforting, and Mark felt a strange excitement he could not explain. "Good morning, human," Lyria said softly. Her voice carried warmth, unusual for his Irithian. His tone was normally even and measured. "Good morning, Lyria," he replied, smiling. I hope today's calm." She tilted her head slightly, her eyes reflecting faint laughter. "Calm does not often come to those who walk between worlds," she said. "But you will learn much today." They began their journey through the city once more. Today's schedule involved observing the energy research facilities of Zereth. These facilities were said to house some of the most advanced technology in the galaxy. Mark was eager to learn, but also nervous. He had a feeling that today would not be entirely peaceful as they approached the research complex. A soft vibration ran through the ground. Lyria's eyes narrowed, and her movements became precise and cautious. "Something is wrong," she said softly. "Stay close." Mark followed, his heart quickening. They entered the facility, and he immediately noticed a strange tension among the scientists. Alarms began to sound, faint at first, then growing louder. Mark realized the building's security systems were reacting to something or someone. Suddenly, a group of rogue aliens appeared, attempting to sabotage the facility. Mark froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. Lyria's calm presence anchored him. She moved swiftly, creating protective energy shields around them as the intruders advanced. The aliens were fast and aggressive, but Lyria's control over energy was precise and powerful. "Mark, follow my lead," she instructed. "Keep close and do not interfere unless I tell you." He nodded, adrenaline surging through him. He watched as Lyria directed streams of energy to block the intruders, her movements graceful, yet deadly accurate. Humans had never encountered this level of coordination and skill in battle before, and Mark felt both awe and fear. He realized that Lyria was more than just beautiful and intelligent. She was a warrior, capable of defending her people with incredible power. The intruders pressed forward, but Lyria was prepared. She created barriers and redirected energy flows to contain them. Mark found himself working alongside her, moving as she instructed, helping to stabilize vulnerable systems in the facility. He was amazed at how quickly he adapted to her guidance at one point. A device began to overload, threatening to release a dangerous energy pulse. Mark froze, unsure how to stop it, but Lyria's calm voice guided him. "Focus, human. Use your mind and trust your instincts." He took a deep breath and followed her instructions, manipulating the controls to stabilize the device. It hummed and glowed, then returned to normal. Lyria's eyes met his, and she inclined her head slightly, a gesture of approval. Mark felt a surge of pride and relief. The rogue aliens, realizing their plan had failed, retreated with surprising speed. The facility's alarms quieted, and the researchers began assessing the damage. Mark and Lyria stood together, catching their breath. He could see the faint glow of approval in her eyes, and he felt a connection that went beyond words. "You did well," she said softly. "You were brave, and you adapted quickly. Most humans would have frozen." Mark shook his head, still trying to calm his racing heart. I couldn't have done it without you. You guided me. Lyria's expression softened. We helped each other. That is the way of balance. After the crisis, the council requested an emergency meeting. Mark followed Lyria to the chamber, where the council members discussed the attempted sabotage. The humans observed, careful not to interfere, while Lyria provided translations and explanations when necessary. Mark realized that her presence not only protected him physically, but also helped him navigate the political and cultural complexities of Zirith. During a brief moment of quiet in the meeting, Mark found himself reflecting on the day's events. He had witnessed danger and courage, skill and intelligence, and through it all, Lyria had remained a constant presence. Her calm confidence, her thoughtful guidance, and her subtle acknowledgement of his efforts made him feel respected and valued. He realized that their bond was growing stronger, rooted in trust, shared experiences, mutual respect. After the meeting, Lyria guided Mark to a quiet observation deck overlooking the city. The view was breathtaking. Glowing rivers weaved through the streets, and floating structures reflected the soft light of Zyrith's twin suns. Mark felt a sense of peace he had not experienced since arriving on the planet. Your world is beautiful, he said softly, thinking of Earth. But this place is something else entirely. Lyria's eyes reflected the glow of the city. Zirith is our home. We cherish it, and we protect it. But beauty alone does not define strength. Courage, honesty, and balance are what sustain us. Mark nodded, feeling the weight of her words. He understood that her people's values were different from humans, yet there were universal truths that connected them. He realized that bravery, honesty, and respect mattered across species. Across worlds, as the suns began to set, casting long shadows across the city, Mark and Lyria observed the patterns of light and energy that shifted across the streets below. For a moment, they stood in silence, connected by shared experiences and understanding. Then, without warning, a sudden tremor shook the observation deck. Mark grabbed the railing, startled, while Lyria immediately moved to assess the situation. It is the energy flows, she said. Something is destabilizing the city's core. We must act quickly. Mark felt a surge of fear, but also determination. He had seen Lyria face danger with calm strength before, and now he realized that he could not rely on her alone. He had to act. Following her instructions, he assisted in stabilizing control panels and redirecting energy flows. Lyria moved alongside him, her movements precise and elegant, her focus unwavering. Together, they worked as a team, combining human ingenuity with Cyrethian skill. After tense moments, the tremor subsided and the energy flows stabilized. Mark exhaled deeply, feeling both relief and exhaustion. He looked at Lyria, who gave him a faint nod of approval. You have courage beyond what I expected, she said softly, and a mind capable of adapting quickly. I am impressed, human. Mark smiled, feeling a mixture of pride and humility. I'm learning from the best. Lyria's expression softened, and for a moment, Mark thought he saw something almost like warmth in her eyes. We learn from each other, she said. As night fell over Zirith, Mark reflected on the events of the day. He had faced danger, learned about Cyrethian culture, and experienced moments of connection and understanding that he could not have imagined. His admiration for Lyria had grown beyond simple fascination. He respected her courage, intelligence, and wisdom. He also realized that their bond was becoming something rare and special. Despite being from different worlds, different species, they were learning to trust and understand each other. This connection, built on honesty, courage, and respect, was stronger than anything he had expected from a mission. Before returning to the quarters, Lyria spoke quietly. Tomorrow, we will continue our journey. You will see more of Zyrith, and perhaps understand more about yourself. Mark nodded, feeling a sense of anticipation and curiosity. He did not know what the next days would bring, but he understood one thing clearly. This mission was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about connection, trust, and discovering the extraordinary in the ordinary. As he prepared for sleep, he thought of Lyria and the events of the day. He realized that their experiences together were teaching him something valuable, not just about Xyrith, but about humanity, courage, and the power of honest connection. He drifted to sleep with a sense of hope and excitement. Tomorrow promised new challenges, new discoveries, and perhaps new moments that would deepen the bond between human and alien. For the first time in his life, Mark felt that he was part of something greater than himself, something that could change not only his understanding of the universe, but also the future of relations between humans and Xyrethians. Mark had never imagined that a routine mission to a distant planet would feel so unreal. The human space fleet had just arrived at Xyrith, a planet known for its shimmering cities and highly intelligent alien civilization. His job as a cultural observer and linguist was simple. In theory, study the alien people, understand their culture, and assist in peaceful diplomatic relations. He had done many missions before, but none of them prepared him for what he was about to see. The first time he stepped onto Xyrith, he was struck by the city's beauty. Buildings shimmered with colors that seemed alive. Streets glowed with faint bioluminescent light, and the air was filled with a soft, musical hum. As if the planet itself was singing. Humans were allowed in limited areas, always accompanied by Xyrethian guides, because the aliens were cautious. Mark followed the small delegation of humans, carefully observing everything. As they walked through the Grand Plaza, he noticed people moving with grace and elegance. Every alien seemed to carry themselves with calm confidence. Then he saw her. She was unlike anyone he had ever seen. Her skin shimmered in tones of blue and green, patterned like flowing water under sunlight. She was tall, taller than most humans, and her eyes were deep and almost liquid, reflecting the light in ways that made Mark feel dizzy. Her hair, if it could be called that, floated slightly as if weightless, waving gently even without wind. She moved with quiet strength and elegance. Yet there was an intensity about her gaze that seemed to look through him. Mark's heart skipped. He knew it was unprofessional, but he couldn't help himself. Without thinking, he said, almost aloud, "You're beautiful." For a moment, nothing happened. The woman paused, her liquid eyes fixing on him. Mark immediately feared he had made a huge mistake. Humans and aliens did not always understand each other. A wrong word could offend, ruin diplomacy, or worse. But instead of anger or confusion, she tilted her head slightly, studying him with curiosity. "Beautiful," she said, her voice melodic, almost musical, though he did not understand the words fully. A translator device in his ear caught her tone and converted it into English. Yes, he stammered. "I think. It is a human way of saying I like how you look." He suddenly wished the words would vanish from the air. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled softly, almost imperceptibly, and nodded, almost as if acknowledging not just his words, but his honesty. Her gaze lingered for a moment before she stepped away gracefully, disappearing into the crowd. Mark watched her go, feeling a strange mix of relief and wonder. Something about her had stirred something in him, a sense of curiosity and respect he could not explain. The human delegation was quickly summoned by officials to a council meeting. Mark had no time to think more about the alien woman, but he couldn't stop thinking about her as he walked into the great council hall. He tried to focus on the mission, on the official speeches and protocols, but her image kept returning to him, the way her eyes seemed to hold the depth of oceans, the way her movements combined strength and grace, the way she had reacted to his simple compliment. After the meeting, Mark wandered the city on his own. Humans were allowed some freedom to explore under supervision, but he managed to slip slightly ahead of his group. As he moved through a street lined with glowing plants and crystalline structures, he saw her again. She was walking slowly, observing something on the ground. But as soon as she noticed him, she stopped. This time, Mark approached more carefully. "I didn't mean to offend you yesterday," he said, a little embarrassed. I was honest." She studied him, her luminous eyes narrowing slightly. Then, after a long moment, she spoke through the translator. "Honesty is rare among humans. Most speak only for advantage. You speak what you feel." Mark blinked. He had not expected that response. "That's true, I suppose," I try. Her expression softened, and she inclined her head. I will remember you, human who speaks honestly. Then she turned and walked away again, leaving him stunned. He did not understand why her words affected him so much, but he knew he wanted to learn more about her. Over the next day, Mark found that he could not stop thinking about the woman whose name he did not even know. He listened carefully to conversations with other Zyrethians, learning as much as possible about their culture, their art, their values. He noticed patterns in their speech and behavior, small details that revealed a society focused on harmony, wisdom, and respect for all life. And then, unexpectedly, she appeared again. This time, it was official. The human delegation had been informed that each visitor would be assigned a Zyrethian guide for cultural orientation, went to Mark's astonishment. The council assigned her to him. Mark nearly choked when he heard her name. Lyria. He had been dreaming of meeting her again. And now she would be with him for the next part of the mission. As they walked together through the city, Lyria moved with the same quiet grace, her eyes observing everything. Yet she seemed more relaxed than before. They passed gardens where plants glowed with soft light, fountains that floated mid-air, and streets filled with gentle music emanating from unknown sources. Mark tried to ask questions about her culture, but he kept stumbling over the translator device. Still, he listened as she described her people's history, their connection to the energy flows of Zyrith, and their philosophy of balance and respect. Her voice was soft and melodic, and he found himself mesmerized. You see, she said at one point, pointing to a glowing river that flowed through the city, our people believe that life is like the river. Every choice, every action moves through the world. Disturb it, and the flow changes. Respect it, and harmony continues. Mark nodded, trying to show understanding. It's beautiful, he said honestly. Your philosophy. It makes sense. She looked at him then, her eyes deep and searching. It makes sense to you? A human? Yes, he said, almost without thinking. I think honesty and respect are universal. Lyria paused. For a moment, the bustling city seemed to fade away. Then she smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached her eyes. You are unlike other humans I have met. I will watch your journey with interest. Mark's heart raced. He had expected to learn about her culture, but not to form a connection. He realized that her words and her presence made him feel something unfamiliar, both excitement and a deep respect for the being before him. The day continued with visits to museums, observation of Zyrethian technology, and explanations of their governance. Mark observed Lyria closely, noting her quiet intelligence and strength. She was always calm yet decisive, and even when challenges arose, she maintained grace under pressure. As evening fell, the city transformed. Lights shifted in color, glowing softly across the streets. Humans were allowed to leave the main plaza for a short walk. Under supervision, and Mark found himself walking beside Lyria along the riverbank. He felt a strange nervousness, wanting to speak, wanting to say something meaningful, yet unsure what was appropriate. Finally, he spoke. Still think you're beautiful? He said, almost shyly. Lyria's eyes widened slightly, and then she laughed a sound like soft chimes in the night air. It was unexpected, warm and real. I do not hear compliments often, she said. Your words are unusual. They carry sincerity. Appreciate them. Mark could hardly believe what he was hearing. Not only had she accepted his compliment, but she had responded in a way that felt personal, human. He realized that despite being from completely different worlds, they were beginning to understand each other. The night ended with Lyria guiding Mark back to the delegation's quarters. As they paused at the entrance, she looked at him, her glowing eyes reflecting the soft light of the city. Tomorrow, we will continue. You will see more of Zyrith, and I will see more of the human who speaks honestly, she said. Mark nodded, feeling a mixture of anticipation and nervousness. He did not know what the next days would bring, but he understood one thing clearly. This mission was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about connection between species, between cultures, and now personally. Between him and Wire, as he lay down to sleep that night, images of Xyrith, the glowing river, and Lyria's mesmerizing eyes filled his mind. He had thought he was prepared for anything on this mission, but he realized he had not been prepared for this encounter so simple, so human, yet so extraordinary, that it would change the course of his experience on Xyrith forever.